Okay, so today our focus for our webinar is going to be on CV writing skills for people who haven't worked in a while. So there are a few, but we'll go through all of that a little bit later. So welcome everybody. Just need to mute.
Can everybody mute? I'm going to mute everyone. If you can just unmute yourself after I've done that.
Okay, perfect. There we go. So that's me, and a little bit about me, just so that you know who's speaking to you today. My name is Kim Hatchuel. I'm a freelance proofreader. I have 6 years experience as a proofreader. Before that, I worked as an admin manager for an insurance company. And at the moment, I'm also a recruitment consultant for a small agency. So when it comes to assisting with CV writing, I know exactly what recruiters and employers are looking for from my experience with placing candidates. So let's begin. So I'll start with this very important fact you may not know. Employers and recruiters generally spend 3 minutes at the most looking at a CV. So if they get your CV, you have to wow them in the first 3 minutes, otherwise they're going to put you at the bottom of the pile and move on to the next. So where do we start? 6 main things that we need to include in a CV. Now, bearing in mind, most of them are necessary, some of them subjective, so let's go through them in detail. The first thing is your personal details. So obviously they need to know who you are, where you stay, and where you stay is important in relation to where the job is. Your email address and phone number so that they can contact you. I've seen many CVs where there's no contact details. That's a no-no. In terms of a professional photograph, I prefer it. I'd like to see what the candidate looks like. Are you presentable? Have you made an effort? Are you going to a corporate position and are you wearing a suit or are you wearing a hoodie? That's very important. And the other thing, driver's license and own car. Now, while I'm aware that a lot of people in this country don't have cars and rely on public transport, I prefer that it's on the CV just so that we know what we're dealing with. And then obviously, if you're applying for a job which needs a car and you don't have your own, but you do have a driver's license, that's good to know for me too. Okay, so that's the first thing, personal details. Then I say a personal statement. Now, personal statement is not a cover letter. Cover letter is, dear sir, please find attached my CV. That's not necessary. You're attaching your CV. They know that. Don't state the obvious. So it's just a few paragraphs about yourself, which includes your past experience. And this is important if you're re-entering the job market, since I want to know what kind of skills you have and what kind of experience you had when you did work, because that counts for a lot. So you highlight the skills that you gained while you were working. And then obviously also if you've done some volunteer work or charity work for a school, those sorts of things, that's great too. And then you mention in this little personal statement, which is 3 paragraphs at the most, that you want to use your skills and experience in a new position. This is what I can bring and this is what you'll get if you hire me. Okay, so here's an example, and I've just randomly chosen an example. So this person is an admin support professional with more than 20 years experience, and none of those as a PA to a CEO. So I can see that her experience is in admin. She's a PA, which means she's organized. I have excellent computer and office management skills. That's tick, and another tick. And I'm proficient at coordinating diaries and making travel arrangements. So these are all skills that this person has when this person worked. And then I'm looking to secure a challenging new role where I can apply my skills, knowledge, and previous experience. So that's showing what you've got and what you can bring to the party. Okay. Then when it comes to education, this is important. So qualifications are fantastic, but also professional development courses and certificates. So if you've upskilled while you haven't worked, you start with those most recent ones. Okay. So for example, this person did her matric at Sandringham. She went on and did a degree afterwards. And then only later in life, and potentially during COVID, she went and did a LinkedIn Learning course and a Udemy course. That's great. And I can see that she's doing her best to upskill herself while she's not working. So that all counts. Okay. In terms of working experience, you begin with your last position. So often I'll see CVs where they start with their first position. That means that I have to scroll all the way down to the bottom of your CV to see where your last position was. So rather start with the first one because that's the first one I'm going to look at. Okay, you need to include everything about the company name, the dates of employment, and your job title. Sometimes not a bad idea to include a website address, just so that I can see what kind of company it is that you work for, the size of the company, and that sort of also adds weight to where you've worked. And then obviously include everything you did in that position. So a good example or an idea for that one would be to put everything in bullet points. And then highlight the things that you did that you know are great and you know that are relevant to the position that you'd like to apply for or the company that you're aiming at going to work for. And then reason for leaving each position would be fantastic. So left the job market when you had your first child, which is fine. Okay, and be honest about that. So don't say I've left the job market when I had my first child and actually you were fired or something, something as weird as that. Okay, so, and if you haven't worked in a while, include volunteer work. So if you've arranged charity functions at your child's school, or you've organized charity functions elsewhere, or you've donated your time to an organization, add those things too. And I specifically left a big gap there. It's a no-no. If there are big gaps in your employment, explain them. Don't, and another thing, don't leave out work experience because it doesn't relate to the job that you're applying for. I prefer to know what you've done the whole time as opposed to see a 6-month gap here or a 2-year gap there. So put everything in. Okay. So here's an example. This person is PA at Bright, and you can see the last time she worked was May 2015. And it says there she took time off to raise her children. Okay. In terms of her responsibilities, you can see I've put them in a bullet point format. And these are really important because I can see that she can deal with correspondence and phone calls and managing diaries. And if I want to employ an executive PA, these are the most important things that this person has done, which shows me her skills. Organizing events and conferences. She might want to get into the events industry, when it reopens after COVID. And that was her last or her most recent position. And then the next one would be as an office administrator, and she moved on because she obviously got a better position. But you see, there's no gap between May 2006 and the most recent position. And again, she's highlighted the job, the duties that she did. I can see she can answer the phone. Maybe I'm looking for a receptionist, or those sorts of things. Excel, PowerPoint, minutes of meetings is another fantastic one. Okay, and then when it comes to skills, you want to highlight the skills which are relevant to the field of work that you'd like to get into or the job that you're applying for. And in these skills, you include computer related skills. So bearing in mind, if you haven't worked for a while, you might have upskilled in the past, or you may have skills from previous positions. Highlight those because those are the things I want to see. And I'll go on about the upskilling. That's really important. You haven't worked for a while for whatever reason, but you haven't not done anything. Okay. When it comes to references, these are really important. I prefer that they are in and not out. If you prefer to leave them out, that's fine, but then make a note somewhere. So this would be people you've reported to, not colleagues. It would be your immediate line manager at your previous position because they know you and they know your work ethic and they know how you deal with certain things at the office. Colleagues are always going to say something nice about you. And landline numbers where possible, because if you put a landline number on a CV, I can look it up and that's the correct company. If you put a cell phone number, how am I to know that you're actually the person that I want to speak to when I'm taking a reference. I've had occasions before where I've taken a reference from someone who actually wasn't the person I thought they were. So landline numbers where possible. No references from family or friends unless you've worked for them. Again, they're going to say the nicest things about you. That's why they're your family and friends. And as I mentioned, if you'd prefer not to put contact details on your current CV, you can say can be made available on request, but then just make sure that you have those people and that they know that they're going to be contacted for a reference. And also make sure that those people know your work ethic and will hopefully say something good about you. I have a list of questions that I ask referees, and you need to make sure that that person is going to say all the good things if you really want that job. So there's the example. That's the person she reported to. He was the CEO. There's his. You can add the cell phone number if you want, and if that John Smith knows that he's going to get a phone call. You don't have to be as detailed as this, but a landline number is the most important thing. Okay. So now we've spoken about what goes in a CV. Let's chat about the things that don't go in a CV. So the things that don't go in a CV are interests and hobbies. I'm not really interested in what you do after hours or on the weekends. I'm really interested in what you do during the week, unless your interests relate to the position, but generally not really. Religion has no place in a CV. It has no place in an office. So don't put it on your CV. If you want to disclose it at an interview, that's up to you, but it's not on your CV. And any inappropriate personal information. And the reason I say that is don't tell them anything you wouldn't tell them in an interview, you know. And the one question I think I had last week was, what about a criminal record? Don't put on your CV that you don't have a criminal record, because I'm going to find out. I'm going to send, my candidates all go for fingerprints. So don't assume that you don't have one, because sometimes, some things happen and they stay on your, don't put it in, okay? The important things that I really look for and can help with and are spelling mistakes, absolute no-no. And here I'll add, when you type in your CV or when you're getting somebody to help you with your CV, make sure that you're not using American English. We don't live in America, and our language and our spelling is very different. So just make 100% sure of that. No wasted space. So don't have a full page, front page with just curriculum vitae and your name. That's a waste of space, and that takes away the time that the person is going to be looking at your CV. And very important is honesty. If you haven't worked for 10 years, don't make up stuff. Be honest. Don't put references that don't exist. Don't make up skills that don't exist, because those sorts of things get found out. And then obviously explain the gaps, which I've already mentioned. So what I've added this week is, I know it was important last week, is where to register your CV. Okay, so the first place, and I mentioned this last week, and you'll get a copy of this presentation, so you don't have to make a note now. But the first, and I believe the best job portal in South Africa is PNet. The caliber of candidates and the caliber of jobs and everything, in my opinion, is one of the best, if not the best. Update your profile on LinkedIn. That's really important. And when I say that, you go and target. So make sure that your profile is 100% up to date, and then go and connect with various people in the industries that you want to join. So if you want to go into education, go and look for the HR manager at Varsity College, at Pearson, at Damlin, at Wits, at Red Hill Prime. Go and look for all those people. The recruit.
Sorry, Kim, you are mute. Kim, you are mute.
Oh gosh, how long have I been on mute?
And not long, not long. I think
Okay,
maybe
sorry about
when you
that.
have to connect with HR of
Okay,
the industry.
not sure how that happened. Yes. Apologies. So LinkedIn is important, And it does take time, but connect with people in industries that you, and HR people in industries that you want to make sure. And then LinkedIn has also got a profile on it, which you can add to your picture, which says open to work. So the minute you connect with them, they will see that you're open to work. Careers 24 is also a good one. Not as good as Pnet, but I believe in it. And then there's also careerjunction.co.za, which I think is a good one. The more job portals your CV is registered on, the better. And then with the likes of Pnet, I know that you can narrow it down to the kind of positions that you'd like. And then you can say, I'd like an email once a week or once a day with companies that are recruiting or positions that are available. And this is the kind of position or company I'm targeting my CV at. That's really helpful. So those are my details. Those will be shared with everyone afterwards. I'm always available to help with CVs, to help with anything job related or those sorts of things. So, but you will get a copy of my presentation. So I'm now going to stop my sharing so that we can go to questions. So I just wanted to know if I answered everyone's questions or if anyone would like to ask me something.
It's very quiet this morning.
Kim, are you happy for the? Yes. Are you happy for me to send a similar form to the last one for when
Yes.
Tracy sends the email out?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I see Melissa has her hand up. Melissa, you can unmute yourself and ask your question.
Hi, I just wanted to know how much education do you actually list under education?
Well, it depends. I think if you're applying, let's say you're applying for I recruit for Varsity College, so they're like fresh on my mind. But if you were applying for a senior lecturing position and they wanted somebody with a minimum of a master's degree, list that, or a PhD or whatever, those sorts of things listed. When it comes to the certificates and upskilling and all those online courses, I don't think it's necessary to list absolutely every single one. Perhaps just the ones where you believe are relevant to the position that you are applying. Otherwise,
Thanks very much.
Will be too long. You don't want it to be too long.
Odette has posted in the chat box. She has asked, do I need to be self-employed before I apply for a job today?
I'm not sure if I understand that correctly, but you don't have to be self-employed. And if you're not self-employed, don't say that you're self-employed, if I'm understanding you correctly.
Odette?
What I'm saying, sorry, is that, yes, can I talk?
Yes.
Sorry? Oh, thank you. What I'm saying is that given that there's so few jobs for so many people, do we need to have had some try, even if one has failed at being self-employed, in order to be one step ahead from someone who's been left in a cubicle for years in a position and been very loyal, and now it has been discarded? How much do we need? Is it education, or do we need more education, or do we need to have been self-employed? Is what I'm asking for today's times, please.
So I think there are a lot of people who are self-employed, and the self-employed people are not going back to corporates or even to any office environment because of the nature of being self-employed. I mean, it's not the easiest thing, but for some people, compared to working in an office, it's much more pleasant. But if you've got it, and if you'd like to add it on your CV, it does look good because you've got experience managing a business or managing staff or managing yourself. or even managing something quite difficult in a very challenging time at the moment. I don't think it's, and again, it depends on the person and it depends on the position. So if I took myself as an example, because I've worked for myself for 6.5 years, it doesn't mean that I have better skills than an executive PA who's worked for a company for the last 6 years. So I don't think that it makes a difference personally.
So we have a comment and then a question from Ingrid. She said, who is self-employed? She said when she applied for jobs, a total of about 40, she found that she had so much work experience and was really overqualified. But companies tend to hire younger people with less experience. Why is that?
In my opinion, and I'm not 100% sure about why people make certain decisions, but as an example, I was recruiting for a lecturer position. They wanted lots of experience, but they didn't want somebody in their 40s. And the reason they didn't want somebody in their 40s was because the team were really young. And if they had someone in their minds that was a lot older, they wouldn't get on with the team. Also, and the other thing is that if they have no experience, they can be molded and trained and shaped into the kind of person that the company wants or the person wants. But I get that applying for jobs, 40 in total, and that's not a lot. I know some people who've applied for over 100 jobs and have come short because people, are giving jobs to young people. For that, I say you just got to, if you want to, you just got to keep going and keep trying, because the right thing will come along. And don't take it personally that who's so much younger with no experience is going to get a job over you.
Thank you. I see Helene's got a question.
There's also
Just
another
thing
question from Lee Marie
with
as
taking
well.
people with less experience, often linked to salary.
Yeah, that's
I think it's often linked to salary. So there's the sacrifice that companies make in that they get less experienced people, which they then have to manage more, but the salaries that they pay those younger people are far less.
Sometimes that's not a good thing though, because we tend to pay for what. Yeah. Lee Marie asked if you have to put copies of all your certificates in your CV. No. Bearing in mind that that's going to make the CV a lot longer. It's also going to make the file size a lot bigger. And if you're emailing or if it's, sending it to various people, if they want to see your CVs, they will ask. I only ask for a CV when I need to verify that those qualifications are legitimate. And we do that. So no, you don't have to put them in.
Are there any other questions this morning? So, Kim, I think really in summary, it's about decluttering your CV, sticking to the truth, and just being very mindful of your spelling, grammar, punctuation, and the details that you include. I can't imagine what it must be like to be a recruiter who has to sift through pages and pages of content in a CV where half of it is really not relevant. So if anyone else has any other questions before we end off today, I do see that Ariella. Sorry, Ariella.
No, there's another question. I think my internet's not so stable. There's another question from Stella.
Yes, there's one that's just come through. Can one apply for a manager position even though you've never managed a team before?
Well, it all depends. So the job spec will 9 times out of 10 say you need 2 to 3 years experience managing a team or managing 2 people. So generally look at the job spec because that will tell you what they need from you. If you've never managed a team before and they want somebody who has, that's probably not the position for you. But you could apply for the same position or a position in the same company and then work your way up to managing a team. But not if they definitely want that. So no. Based on experience, again, look at the job spec. The job spec will specify exactly what it is they want, and then take it from there.
I think it's also, while people are looking for jobs, there are online courses out there that can make you stand out of the rest. And, you know, if you can maybe show some signs of leadership and taking initiative and if you are interested in leadership or passionate about it and have taken steps towards that, people may take it in favor. But I know that
Yes.
it is a challenge to apply for manager position without managing people before. I know that that's a big, you know, you need to find yourself sometimes maybe lower position and then make the initiative while you're employed to maybe show that you've got the management or the leadership qualities in you. But I think it could be a problematic to try and, you know, apply for management without having that before.
Yeah. Yeah.
I see
And
there's
bearing
another
in mind that
question.
you're going to be up against, especially now, you're going to be up against 10 or more people who have managed a team. So your skills and your experience needs to be that good that they're going to look at you and say, well, she hasn't managed a team, but let's give her a chance, because there are 9 other CVs of people who have. So, you know, your CV has to be brilliant in that case.
And Kim, what would you say constitutes overqualification for a position?
Well, and I'll go back to my executive PA position. If you've got a master's degree master's degree in I don't know, whatever, and you're applying for a position which doesn't really need it, you know you're overqualified. Put it in, because I want to know that you've done it. But don't be disappointed if somebody who doesn't have the overqualified or the overqualification is getting the job, because generally employers see it as, oh, she's got a master's degree, she's got to be expensive. And we've got a budget of X, so, you know, I'm not going to look at the CV, because I'm assuming that with a master's degree comes, you know, a big monthly salary requirement. But then explain potentially why you studied your master's and why you don't want to use that particular field and why you're applying for a job in that company for that particular position, or I'm passionate about this. Never mind my huge degrees. You know, bring the personal aspect in as well. And then, you know, especially if you're coming back to the workplace and you actually really just want to answer phones, or, you know, become a virtual assistant, and you're applying for a virtual assistant position because you can do that in your spare time. You know, make it about what you'd like to do, as opposed to the fact that you have that master's degree. And you're right, it is all about economics. And very subjective as well.
So we have included in the chat box this morning the ORT training calendar for the upcoming Career Hub webinars. And we will be sending you all the resources in the post-webinar communication. The Jetflix channel is up 24/7. So if you'd like to recap on any of the past sessions that you've missed, please feel free to log in, subscribe, so that you can keep up to date if you're not able to join us for any of the webinars that we have coming up, or alternatively that you have missed. We encourage you and we urge you to please complete the survey that will be in the email that I send you, so that you can win a CV revamp. And for those of you that won't be winning, please just ensure to follow the steps that Kim has outlined for us today when crafting your CV, to ensure it is an absolute representation of you and the best that you are able to put forward. So Kim, we thank you. On behalf of myself, Ariella, and all of us, we thank you for your time over the last 3 weeks and for sharing such value with unemployed people, school leavers, people re-entering the job market. And we're so grateful to you for the time that you've given up, the resources that you've shared, and exceptionally grateful for the offer of help